Hello, welcome to the Confident Women Leaders Show. My name is Dina Reddiger. I am the CEO of Diagnostic Thinking and ACE Coaching Company. I'm also the creator of Diversity Diagnostic Leadership Systems, where I help women to understand their worth, to change their beliefs, and find confidence in decisions for themselves and their teams. I have an exciting guest today. Her name is Joanne Yawitz. So, Joanne, welcome.
Thank you.
Joanne has more than 30 years experience guiding clients along the challenging path of career advancement and attractive job offers. As founder of Living Your Dream Coaching, Joanne offers career development coaching mid to level and executive clients seeking to reach the next level in their careers. She also helps people find the work that's right for them and their career calling. As someone who has had 3 successful careers, built a business while raising a family, and counseled people through job changes, Joanne knows the daunting challenges of making a successful career transition on your own. So welcome, Joanne. You know I'm a big fan of you, and I think you've got a lot of great tips for anyone that's listening today about their confidence. And I'd like to know what you would like the audience to know about you.
Thank you, Dina. I am delighted to be here, and I'm a big fan of yours as well.
Thank you. Yes, and I'd love to know, confidence is an important skill. Tell us about your experience and how you stepped into your confidence, leading others. And what was it like for you?
Great question. I think my answer is that the confidence was built over time. And this is a little bit counterintuitive, but in many situations, my confidence was built when I didn't succeed in the way I expected to, when I had some setbacks, when I was forced to make some career changes, and I'm happy to share that story with you. And it made me reevaluate who I am, what are my skills, and what am I going to do next? How am I going to bounce back? Briefly, a story is that when I graduated college, I decided I wanted to be a city planner. This was in the Boston area. And I got my master's in city planning and worked in the area for about 8 years. And then there was a time where the economy was really hurting. So my kind of city planning was completely dependent on public funding from the national and state and local sector. The funding was drying up, which meant myself and scores of other city planners in the area were out of work. Here I thought, I've got a master's degree from Harvard. I'm going to do this for the next 40 years. And it was very much unexpected and very abrupt. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? I decided to go back to school and get my MBA and transition. Even in that transition, there were some unexpected things. But the point is, I started to be in touch with my resilience and transferable skills, and that life isn't always what you think it's going to be. And so it can be extremely challenging and stressful in the short term. In the longer term, I know this sounds a little bit trite, but it's absolutely character building. And it's those pivot points, those times of uncertainty, how I navigated them. I didn't know exactly what the steps were going to be, the path, and certainly didn't know the end point. But that's what contributes to my self-esteem and my confidence. So in the future, when I encounter other challenges or difficulties, I can call upon those past times. Okay, somehow I navigated through it. How am I going to navigate through this? And the more you do it, the more when bumps come across your path, you're less panicked.
Very valuable tips. When women are forced, or anyone is forced with a change, you absolutely have to look inside. And sometimes that's really hard to do, is what you stated. And it kind of comes with time. So with that is my next question, what do you see as the biggest challenge you see women facing today?
Unfortunately, I think it's today, and it's been this way for a good 40 to 50 years. I think it's twofold. I think it's women having success in work-life balance. It's an easy phrase to say. It's not an easy thing to do day to day. And obviously, work-life balance, the work part, we know it's your job. These days with COVID, with the internet, your job may be 8 hours, but it seems like it's 16 or 17 hours a day. It bleeds into your personal time. And the balance, your personal, it's your relationship with your significant other, your spouse, your children, your family. There's lots of tugs there. And it's extremely challenging. The other piece is, I think women valuing themselves, what they're truly worth, what they're contributing to a company, how that translates into their salary. And it's one thing to say, okay, great, I'm good at developing relationships. I'm a really effective leader or manager, and I've done these things, these accomplishments that I can point to on my job. But it's okay, you know, I'm being paid $40,000 less than I should be, but it's okay. Or I don't even know that I'm being underpaid. So it's really stepping up to the plate and advocating for yourself, doing your research on terms of what your worth is on the job in terms of dollars. Of course, there's many intangibles that are invaluable as well. Speaking up and achieving the compensation that you're truly worth.
That's a powerful statement. You know, Tupper University just shared that, 85% of men know their worth. Only, 15 to 17% of women know their worth. How can women be more confident in being able to believe their worth and also take action on getting what they're worth? How do they do that?
Great question. Not to be self-serving, but working with an executive coach or a career coach can be invaluable. It's completely different than talking to a friend or talking to your spouse or a family member. It's just different. The dynamics are different. People can think you're fabulous, but maybe they're going to be a little bit threatened if you get a huge pay increase. Now you're making more than them, whatever the issues are. And working with a coach is somebody who's presumably completely on your side, advocating for you, and is going to be objective. That being said, talk to your coach about, this is what I'm earning. I need more money to live, and or I'm worth more in the workplace. Do research. There's tons of information online to get a sense of what is comparable pay that other people are earning in your industry, in your company, however you want to slice it. And very importantly, say to yourself, okay, I'm now making this. I want to make $30,000 more. Write that down, commit it to yourself and to your coach, and then practice what you're going to say and do to advocate for yourself in the workplace. It doesn't necessarily come naturally, particularly for women, but if you practice, you do role plays, you can write out some of the exact sentences or language you want to use that's going to be carefully crafted to present you in the most powerful light. So you're not going to be struggling or stammering for the right words when you're having that conversation with your boss. It's not only good for you, it can help you earn what you deserve, but it's amazingly empowering for you. So the first time you do it may be a little bit scary, but you can practice. And then once you do it, you are on a roll, like, wow, look what my words did for me. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to help my colleagues. I'm going to help other members on my team. And it's this whole positive thing rolling down the hill.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about a great story about somebody who really got stuck in this place where you feel like you either can't or the fear of doing it is absolutely paralyzing. And you would rather just not do it versus doing it. But yet you shared a great story about somebody who kind of looked at things a little bit differently. So I thought it was really powerful. So if you wouldn't mind to share that, I think, Joanne, that would be really helpful for some people who are struggling with this.
I would love to. This was about 10 or 15 years ago. I was working with a client who is a PhD scientist in the life sciences industry. She's very bright, very capable, and accomplished. She's an introvert, and she suffers from lack of confidence. She was in a career transition, and we were talking about how she could negotiate an offer. We talked about it. We were sort of going around in circles. She was taking notes, but she just couldn't embrace it. Having worked with her for a while, I knew she was the oldest of 5 siblings. She had 3 sisters and a brother, and the brother was the youngest. He was in his late 40s, and he was born with mental impairment. He was literally retired. She was the guardian of her brother. Her parents were no longer living. And she had shared some stories with me about her brother, and that as the guardian, I'm there, I'm going to advocate for him. No, we're not going to wait 3 months. We're going to have it happen now. And a light bulb went off for me. And I said to her, I understand it's difficult for you to advocate for yourself. Let's do a paradigm shift. Pretend you're advocating for your brother. Have that same passion and do it for yourself. And it was this huge light bulb moment for her. It really turned her around. She had done it before. So all she had to do was change the pronouns. And it was very powerful and successful.
I love that. It is so easy for women to advocate for somebody else and not for ourselves. We are always advocating for our children, our spouses, our friends, our loved ones, but, very rarely do we ever make that shift. So I love that story because I think that could speak to a lot of people because it is much more easier to advocate for somebody else. And if you can advocate for yourself and do that paradigm shift, what a powerful place to be stepping into your confidence. So thank you for sharing that story, Joanne. I think that's pretty darn powerful. 3 things that you would offer support for women and their need for more confidence. Can you give 3 short tips around that place?
Again, I think it's another wonderful question. Women are not men. That's a good thing. Women have their own strengths. Again, these are generalizations, but women can be more compassionate, more emotive, maybe more in touch with their feelings. So let's use that to our advantage. For example, really excellent listening skills. So really hear what people are saying. Take in what they're saying. Somebody could be a speaker. Somebody could be another leader in your organization, and you love that person's leadership style. So take note. What about that person's style do I want to emulate? Maybe even reach out to that person and discuss it further, and that individual may become a mentor or give you tips. But being a really good listener and a good observer of what's going on around you. Also, in the context of what you want, don't compare yourself with others. Unique, they have their own bundle of skills. Think about, what it is that you have, how you show up. Maybe you're very empathic. You have a huge emotional intelligence quotient. Perhaps you're a great writer. Perhaps you're a great problem solver. So really tap into those things and use them. So often women will say, oh, I've got a question. I'm not going to ask that question because it's a stupid question. Well, it's probably a really smart question. And or it's a question that everybody's thinking, but they're afraid to ask because the person speaking didn't explain something. So the other piece is speak up. Even if you're an introvert. I have a client right now who I'm working with, and she's a self-described introvert, and she wants to become more visible in her organization. It's a very large company. And she's done a couple things as homework, and it's sort of amazing how much change has already happened. She's done a couple small things. For example, attending one of her monthly meetings with her group. And instead of being there silent, somebody will say, who wants to volunteer on this? And everybody's quiet because they don't want to take on more work. So she said, okay, I do. And then the next meeting, people remembered her. They remembered her name. And the thing she volunteered for, it took 20 minutes or half an hour. But now they know her. She's more visible. And she reached out to a couple people within her organization to network, to find out how they moved up in the organization. And they said, oh, yes, I remember you. You're the one who volunteered for such and such.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that you have to figure out the cure for the common cold in order to be recognized and to be upwardly mobile.
Yes. I love that. A couple of things that you stated, which I think are so powerful, is that you show up in what you believe. So if you believe that you are not as good as somebody else, or you have any doubts in your minds, that's how you're going to show up. So that piece is critical, to have that confidence, but be yourself, be you, be yourself, shine the way you are. But also, I heard you say creating influence is really important, right? So by being memorable, by having relationships are really important. So I thank you for sharing that, because those are really important. I'd love for you to share a little bit. What books, blogs, or podcasts do you listen to?
I enjoyed that question. During COVID, by accident, I stumbled across a podcast from Esther Perel. Her last name is Perel. She's been around for a long time. I only discovered her about 8 months ago. I think she's truly brilliant. She's a clinical psychologist, and I think she's brilliant because she gets it. She gets common issues, stressful issues, untangled up issues, and she can synthesize them so succinctly in a few words. And she does podcasts, she's a therapist, she does books, and I'm hooked on her podcast. Some of it one of it's called How's Work. So it's talking to people that have some kind of work relationship, which is very interesting to hear those issues. Some of it's also interpersonal. And that's her podcast called Where Should We Begin? The other two people that I follow, one is Terry Gross, who has been part of National Public Radio. Her show is called, what is her show called? I'm blanking on it. Fresh Air. She's been doing this at least 30 years, and she interviews people, all different people, artists, authors, scientists, and I have learned so much about topics that I didn't even know were of interest to me, but also I love hearing people's stories, and rarely is it somebody goes from 0 to 120 without any blips. So you hear those setbacks and you hear how they came back, and it's very inspirational as well as educational. The third item is Scott Livingston, who's also an executive coach. I think he's based in Northern Florida. He is one of the 2 or 3 people whose blog I read. He writes every week on Monday, and I just think he has a lot of valuable things to share.
I love that. I love that. You've got some really great resources for everyone. So, Joanne, if you had to go back and do it all over again, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self, which is sort of similar to the answer of the question of how to become confident, that you need to believe in yourself, even if you're really feeling shot down for whatever reason. Be true to yourself, be authentic, listen to what your drivers are, and find those drivers in your next workplace. And also swim downstream. By that, I mean, so many of us as women were doing this thing because it's familiar. We don't like it. It's no longer stimulating. It's toxic, whatever those negative words are. But we just keep doing it because we think it's the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. That's not swimming downstream. Right. Swimming downstream means figure out what your strengths are, your joys are, and pursue those. It makes life so much richer. In the context of those two juxtapositions, I think as humans, we're in many ways wired to be resistant to change. Sometimes change is forced upon us, such as my city planner story. It was scary, but it propelled me into a whole new world that ultimately proved to be wonderful. Mm-hmm. So try and embrace the change. Don't necessarily go into it wildly and grab whatever the first thing is that comes along the way, but change can really be positive, and without question, it can strengthen who you are at the core.
Powerful words. Next question I have for you, give a little feedback and thoughts around the listeners. I know you have been visible during diagnostic thinking sessions, and I'd love to hear kind of your input about what this type of a process might be able to do for somebody who's looking for, confidence or making good decisions.
Love the question, Dina. I was fortunate enough to see you lead a diagnostic thinking program while you and I were advisors at Roche. And what I really appreciated about it was that first, it's setting the tone that we're going to ask you questions, we're going to drill down, we're going to be very thorough without judgment about the situation. So you were an excellent listener. And taking them to the next step, they'd say something and drill down a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further to get to what the core issue, problem, struggle was. And then, very importantly, you had a systematic way of determining what's the cost to the company of this problem continuing. And the number was astronomical. It was millions of dollars. I don't remember. You probably do.
I do.
And
a lot.
And so that was an eye-opener for me as an observer. And I know it was an eye-opener for the participants at Roche. It's like, wow, this isn't nickels and dimes. This is big bucks, even to a major pharmaceutical company. And then the last piece was engaging with the employees to help them figure out action items, viable action items, things they could do to help improve the situation. And the best part was they had, because of the sequence of questions that you asked, they could objectively say, okay, this is what happens, this is the problem, this is the cost of the problem. That gets people's attention.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful, and also powerful for the participants to talk to senior management about these big issues.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And be confident, because it truly was vetted. I think that was one of the things that kind of came out of it. It's not a pie in the sky idea. They went through and really attacked this from all different angles and got stakeholders involved to validate what they think it could be, but when you come up with the final number, it's pretty pretty big. And I think most people will kind of fall away from that because it was a daunting task to take on. But I think collectively, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like they found confidence in each other coming to the table to say, we have something we want to share with you, and we want you to understand what's the cost to the company, right? Can we make this better? So I thank you for being an observer from the outside, because I think you have so much wisdom and value. For me, having somebody to say, is this something that could really be a game changer for companies and for women in general? But it truly is stepping into your confidence. And back to your point, Joanne, I think for women, to close, don't go alone. If you find yourself, feeling stuck, feeling inhibited, lacking confidence, in transition, find a coach, find somebody, certainly, Joanne, you bring a lot of value to a lot of people. And I want to thank you for your invaluable wisdom today, for being on the Confident Women Leader Show and helping women to step in and step up to their confidence and getting the results that they deserve and they want. Thank you, Joanne Yawitz, for joining the Confident Women Leader Show.
My pleasure.
Take care.